Hello everybody and welcome back to Programminers. In the last video, we talked about if and if-else statements. Today I'll be talking about how you can add on to those if and if-else statements using variables. So as you know, this is our 10th video. So this will be the last video in the Programminers series. So at the end of this video, I'll be doing a small recap of what all we learned in this Programminers series. So let's start off by making our program on adding on to the if and if-else statements. Here we have a sprite, our sprite as D here. So we have only one sprite here, and let's start coding this. So we put an event again saying when green flag clicked, and then forever, then an if statement. And now, as I told you, we can add on to our if statements using variables. So let's make a new variable saying score, and let's actually change score to timer, like what we learned in one of the videos. Say timer, and let's just delete the score by right clicking there and delete the score variable. So now we have only one variable called timer. Let's move that up a little bit, and let's start coding the timer to change every 1 second. So we say when green flag clicked, forever, say set timer to 0 before the forever block. So don't get mistaken there. You always have to say set timer to 0 or whatever after the green flag is clicked immediately and before the forever block. And then we say wait 1 second, change timer by 1, because we wanted to change every second. If you haven't seen the video on how to create a timer and a stopwatch, go check out that video where I talked about how to add a timer and a stopwatch to your animations and programs. So here we have changed my variable to 1. Let's change my variable to timer, as my variable isn't defined here. Okay, so that's about our timer program. So let's just check that if it works. It does work. It works perfectly. And let's also say in the if statement, let's put an operator first of all in the if statement there. As I told you in the last video, for if and if-else statements, I recommend for you to use operators, especially in if-else statements, because if-else statements are really risky under a forever block. So we have something is greater than 50, then execute something. So what is this something? It's not fixed that you can only put a sensing block or an operator block inside the operator block. You can also put a variable. So we have this variable timer. So have you ever thought about putting timer in the operator? It fits perfectly there. So if timer is if timer is greater than 50, then we make it execute something like move 10 steps. Let's change that to 5. And let's replace this block using a different operator block saying if timer less than 50. And let's go to variable section and then select timer again. Sorry, that was just... Yeah, so this is about the if code with the variable timer. So now let's check this out. As you can see there, as the timer is less than 50, it continuously keeps moving forward 10 steps. So what if we change that to say if timer less than 1 second, then move 3 steps. And let's change 1 to 5 seconds again, because 1 is too small. And let's just drag the sprite. And let's put an if on edge bounce block, because the sprite goes inside the screen. So let's just put an if on edge bounce. And now let's check this out. As you can see, after it reaches 6 or 7, it stops, because we have said only if the timer is less than 5 seconds, then it should move 10 steps. But as you can see here, the timer is continuously running, but the sprite is not doing anything. So that's about if statements. Now let's move on to if-else statements. Before moving into if-else statements, I have one last pointer to make. Suppose we make one more variable saying stopwatch, and it comes right up the screen here. And instead of 5, if we say if timer lesser than stopwatch, then move 3 steps and if on edge bounce. So you can do that, but we have to make a code for the stopwatch to continue running. So let's make the stopwatch every 1 second. Let's make the stopwatch go 2 counts up. Let's duplicate that code by right clicking it and then drag it there, and let's change this now. So let's say set stopwatch to 0 forever, wait 1 second, change timer by 2. So that's the only change we're doing here. So let's execute this now. So here we have said that if timer is lesser than stopwatch, then move 3 steps and if on edge bounce. So the timer here is equal to stopwatch because the timer and the stopwatch are 0. Here it says 25, but once we click the green flag it turns 0 because we have put the code saying set stopwatch to 0 when the green flag is clicked. So let's check that out. And keep in mind, only if the timer is lesser than the stopwatch, then only it executes this part of code. The stopwatch isn't running here because we haven't defined it here. We've said change timer by 2. We have to say change stopwatch by 2. So that was our mistake. So now let's continue executing our program. First, let's tilt our sprite back to its original position. Here it says negative 90 degrees. Let's change that to positive 90. So he's back again. Okay, let's execute this code now. As you can see here, the timer is never more than the stopwatch. So it continuously executes this program that move 3 steps forever and if on edge bounce. So what if we say set stopwatch to 30 or say 15 and then change stopwatch by negative 2. So in programming, you always have to estimate till you get the correct value and the answer to your program. So let's execute this once again, and the only difference in this program is the stopwatch counts down and the timer counts up. Let's execute this code now. So there, once the timer became more than the stopwatch, the sprite stopped doing everything. So this is about if statements. So now let's quickly jump into if-else statements. So let us have the stopwatch and timer code right here, and let's just change this if statement to an if-else statement. So if-else. So here also we put an operator in the space right here saying if timer lesser than stopwatch, if timer lesser than stopwatch, then move 10 steps. We'll change that to 3 steps now. Move 3 steps and or else move 3 steps, else say oh no. Okay, let's check that out now. So here basically what we've defined is If the timer is lesser than the stopwatch, then it moves 3 steps and says, oh no. No, not. You have to keep in mind that it doesn't say oh no when the timer is lesser than the stopwatch. It says oh no when the stopwatch is when the stopwatch is less than the timer. So basically, else is the contradicting version of the if statement. So this is the positive side. If, then do this. Else, do that. So this is the negative side. If things don't work out, then it should say oh no. So that's about if else statements, and let's execute this program. Let me explain this one last time. So if the timer is lesser than the stopwatch, then it moves 3 steps forward. Otherwise, if the timer is more than the stopwatch, it says oh no. So I hope that's clear, and let's start executing the program. As you can see here, he's saying oh no because, let's just put an if on edge bounce block. We forgot that there. And you could see he was saying oh no because the timer was not lesser than the stopwatch. In fact, it was more than the stopwatch. So let's execute that again. You don't need to worry about tilting this sprite anymore because once it hits the edge, it tilts by itself. So you can see it's saying oh no because the timer is lesser than the stopwatch. And now it has stopped moving because the timer has become more than the stopwatch. So there was actually a mistake in this program. So I recommend you again not to use say blocks in an if else statement, because you could see he was saying oh no even if the timer was lesser than the stopwatch. So I hope that's understood to everyone, and I recommend you to never use say statements. Let's change that 10 to -3. So here, if the timer is less than the stopwatch, it moves 3 steps forward. Otherwise, it moves -3 steps backward. So let's place him in the center, and let's execute this now. And let's remove this forever block as it is not needed here because there's an if else statement, and we have clearly defined that if timer less than stopwatch, move 3 steps, otherwise -3 steps. So it moved -3 steps there. You weren't able to see it because -3 steps is quite a small number. So let's say -40 and +40, -40 and +40. And now let's check that out. We stop it and then execute it again. It moved -40 backwards because, as you can see, the timer is less than the stopwatch, and now it has become more than the stopwatch, but I don't know why it is not moving 40 steps forward. That isn't working because we haven't put a wait block, so it continuously goes 40 steps forward, -40 steps backward, and it remains in the same position. So we have to put a wait block. So if else statements can be quite tricky at times, so you always have to keep your eye in while doing these kind of statements. So we say wait 4 seconds because we want it to be clearly visible to the maker of the program. So it waited for 4 seconds and then moved for -40 steps backwards. So let's change these to something that's clearly understandable to everyone. Let's not make it so complicated, and let's simplify this. So programming is all about simplification and estimation. So we can also say next costume if it has a next costume. So before clicking that, before dragging that block into your code, just see if the sprite has many costumes. Yes, the sprite has many costumes, so it is okay to say next costume. And then if timer less than stopwatch, then next costume, else next backdrop. So we have only one backdrop here, so let's import another backdrop. So this is backdrop. This is the first backdrop. The second backdrop is a plain screen, the white plain screen. Let's execute this now. So it changed. It changed there because the timer was less than stopwatch. And now let's see what happens after the timer becomes more than the stopwatch. As you can see, he changed to his next costume after the timer became less than the stopwatch. So that's about if-else statements. It wasn't really clear because we hadn't interchanged this properly. Sometimes that can get tricky. So let's just put this timer here and let's execute this now. So here, if stopwatch is less than timer, the next costume, else next backdrop. So let's execute this. So stopwatch is less than the timer. It changed the costume because the stopwatch was less than the timer. So it's continuously changing its costume because the stopwatch is less than the timer. There. But what happens when the timer becomes more than a stopwatch? It should change to the next backdrop, but that didn't really happen. So let's set stopwatch to 20, and then so that's easily visible to all the viewers. Let's check that out now. Yeah, it changed to the next backdrop. So that's about if-else statements, and we come to the end of the Programminers set of modules. I hope you really enjoyed this set of 10 modules, and I hope to create another set of 10 or 15 modules using a different programming language so that I can keep you guys interested in programming. And let's now do a small recap of what all we learned in the Programminers set of modules. So we first learned about how to add a sprite and a backdrop by clicking these buttons right there. And then we learned about costumes and then sounds, how to create your own costume, how to create your own sound. And then we learned about the motion blocks, move 10 steps, turn 15 degrees, if on edge bounce, and all of that. And then we learned about looks. Looks, we say hello for 2 seconds, say hello without any time limit. And then switch costume, next backdrop, which we learn now. And then sound, we learned how to create our own sound, like I just told you. And then we also learned how to use sound blocks into our program, saying when play sound pop until done, and and stop all sounds. Then we also learned about events, which are the most important part of programming. We learned about events. When the green flag clicked, which is most commonly used in programming, in Scratch especially, and when space key pressed, when this sprite clicked. So events are sort of easy in Scratch to understand. And we have loops. Repeat 10 times forever. If statements, if-else statements, which we learned today. Then wait 1 second, which is also really important. And then sensing blocks, which fit into the if blocks during if statements and if-else statements. And then we learned about operators, which are basically math operations. And we learned how to use variables into the math operations. And then we learned about variables, which are very, very important in programming. How to make your own variable, just type it right there, and just execute it inside the code by adding the blocks. So we learned all of this in the Programminer series, and I hope it was really useful to you guys, and I hope that this was something that you all enjoyed, and I enjoy this too, programming. So I hope to make a series of new modules with a different programming language, and I hope to see you guys soon, and I hope you really enjoyed. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe right now, and please like, share, and comment in the comment section below if you have any suggestion or any views about Programminers. And for now, this is bye. See you later. Thank you for watching. Happy learning, all of you.